Hello guys, welcome back, and we have another week of Broadway grosses, so let's get into it. Up first we have Anne Juliet, and that went from 94.23 to 93.27, and 1,127,228 to 1,122,842 this week. And A Beautiful Noise also made $1 million this week and last week, going from 80% last week to 78% this week. Again, I think both musicals are doing solid numbers. I don't think they're going to close anytime soon. I think Beautiful Noise got saved by them adding matinee performances, and that's good for them. And Anne Juliet had a bit of a rough start in September, but it's managed to make its way back into the $1 million club. And even when it was doing $900K, it was still fine. You know, it wasn't in any danger, but it was interesting. Back to the Future went from 92.41 last week to 93.21 this week, and 1,240,927 last week to this week's 1,257,898. Again, it's not a behemoth of a musical, but it is making its money, you know. And so for people who are like, I want Back to the Future to close, you're playing on the wrong downfall, because it's making $1 million a week, and as long as it makes the one and the mill, it's fine. Gutenberg went from 94.76 to 92.86, and 842K to 932K, which is almost a $100,000 increase, and that's pretty amazing. I did not expect it to do this good so quickly, but I think it will make $1 million, you know, and it's a very fine, good show. I wasn't a huge fan of it, but I think a lot of people clearly are huge fans of Josh Gad and Andrew Reynolds, and who wouldn't be? So again, I think that this will do incredibly well until it ends in January. Hadestown went from 678K to 680K, and 93% to 95%. Overall, Hadestown is continuing to, you know, down spiral down, whatever you have, as it calls it, and it's just not doing well. And I don't know how they're gonna go into next year. I mean, Jordan Fisher, he's a good actor. He brings in some people, but I don't see this, like, doing those kind of numbers. So, listen, I don't want it to close. I'm just very surprised that it hasn't announced a closing yet. Hamilton went from 100.94 to 101.1, and 1,931,917 to 1,801,365. Harmony played to 82% capacity and 491K with an average ticket of $96. Not a amazing start for this musical. I think a lot of people, since we have gotten back from COVID and all that stuff, people have been saying, oh, it's doing well, but like, Bands Visit made $1 million in its first, like, weeks, months of being alive. So for Harmony, I think any musical that's doing under 500,000 is not doing incredibly well. You want a 6 or a 7, at lowest a 5. 4 is not a great start. I think it will make it to the Tony season. I think that it has enough juice in it, but I think that I see this kind of shaping up to have a kind of business model similar to Shucked, you know, and by that I mean that it kind of makes, you know, just about the amount of money it needs to make, but not necessarily what it needs to, and so it's just kind of like meh in terms of business numbers, but we'll have to see. I know audiences have loved it, and critics love it, so who knows, it could be a surprise hit, but just looking at it, I'm like, I think it's just gonna be kind of those, like, you know, in the middle ones. It's not a downright failure, but it's not a big hit, like, you know, Hamilton. Here Lies Love went from 78.93 to 79.35, and 601K to 690K, which is extremely good for that show. But again, I think it is simply not enough for a musical of that caliber, and it's definitely underperforming, and I expect a closing announcement any day now. Kimberly Akimbo surprisingly went from 678K to 702K, and 89% to 91%, and that's very welcoming news if you're a Kimberly Akimbo fan. And who knows, they might stick it out past January. They haven't announced the closing yet, although I feel like this week is more of an irregularity than a new normal, because for the majority of the time, Kimberly has done 6s and 5s and not 7s. So I don't have a lot of hope in that in this 1 week. Merrily We Roll Along went from 1,706,962 to 1,820,753 and 100% capacity. This is a behemoth, a blockbuster of a musical, and I'm so happy that it is doing so well. Moulin Rouge went from 98.90 to 97.30 and 1,307,553 to 1,252,743. Shocked and Some Like It Hot, both are closing, are doing very well in their last few weeks, going from 85% to 87%, this being for Shocked, 747k to 771k, which is pretty solid numbers for Shocked. Again, I think that it's cut off probably what it needs to make is 800 plus a week, but it's getting pretty close to that, and I'm glad that, people are coming out to see it. Some Like It Hot went from 955k to 905k, and 81% to 74%, which is just on its right where it needs to make the money. It's like, I think it needs to make 900,000 a week, so it's going out very well. Sixth went from 968k to 937k, and 94.54 to 94.41. And Sweeney Todd went from 99.39 to 98.27, and 1,739,000 to 1,710,928. Overall, those are the grosses for this week. A pretty solid week for most musicals, and I'm glad that things are doing well. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Like, subscribe, comment, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.